Hey YouTube, welcome back to Axis and Allies, the Garrison, coming to you with another episode from the bunker here in Rochelle Park, New Jersey. It is episode 1.4, the USA's turn. G.I. Joe, the commander of the USA, will have the opportunity to build up the armed forces of the United States as well as Army, Navy, and Air Force. Okay, so keep in mind, Japan did not attack the USA, which means then that the USA is in effect still out of the war. Okay, and what that means then is that G.I. Joe, who's the commander in chief of the U.S. Armed Forces, will have no choice but just to prepare for war by building up the U.S. arsenal of weapons that will be later on utilized in the war effort with the Allies. Okay, now what will G.I. Joe do? We shall find out. Guys, enjoy the episode, and as always, let me know what you think. All right, so let's go ahead with the USA's turn. But before we do so, let me just do a little bit of housekeeping here. During Japan's turn, I made an error, and during the recap portion of the video or that episode, I mentioned that there were 4 infantry in Japan. As it turns out, Dutch Lancaster pointed out for me that I made the error, and in actuality, Japan only has 3 infantry, not 4. Okay, so let me make that correction right now. And that's been cleared. Okay, so let's go ahead with the USA's turn. The USA purchased with its 52 IPCs, 1 weapons development or technology R&D for 4 IPC, 1 minor industrial complex, 1 carrier, 1 destroyer, and 2 submarines. Okay, so keep in mind the U.S. is out of war, so there will be the U.S. is not in war. So that means then we're going to go directly into non-combat movements. Okay, so let's go ahead and do so with that portion of the USA turn. So the U.S. will take its Warhawk in Philippines, and at a movement of 5, will fly over to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and land in C Zone 30. Okay, the U.S. carrier in C Zone 10 will drop off its fighter and will sail away at a movement of 3. Let's keep in mind there is a naval base in California, in San Francisco, so which allows this carrier to move at a movement of 3. That's going to be 1, 2, and 3. The fighter coming from the Philippines will be able to land on the carrier. Okay, so let's get this memory aid out of the way, and we will continue then with the other naval assets in C Zone 35. We will sail this U.S. Naval Task Force at a movement of 3, 1, 2, and 3. And that fleet will land or be staged in C Zone 23. All right, the U.S. Sub in C Zone 26 will sail away at a movement of 3, 1, 2, and 3, and it will be stationed in C Zone 7. Okay, the U.S. battleship and cruiser at a movement of 2, all right, will sail away, and it'll be stationed with the rest of the U.S. fleet in C Zone 26 off the coast of Hawaii. Okay, the U.S. destroyer in C Zone 10, along with the naval transport, which will pick up 2 infantry divisions, will sail away at a movement of 2 and end up in C Zone 2, and will unload its cargo of 2 naval transports in Alaska. Okay, the U.S. has 1 artillery, 1 mechanized infantry, and 2 AAAs at a movement of 2 will be moved up into Alaska. All right, so here we go. Now, the U.S. fighter in Western USA will deploy and will take off, and at a movement of 3 will fly over to Eastern USA. All right, let's momentarily go back to the west coast of the USA The U.S. Fighter, the naval fighter in Sea Zone 10 will take off, will continue its flight, and at a movement of 3 will fly over onto Sea Zone 101, where it will later on be landing on the carrier that the U.S. will later on place during its final placement of units. All right, same thing with the fighter. Sea Zone, Eastern USA will land on the carrier later on in Sea Zone 101. The U.S. bomber, Central USA, will take off and land on the eastern seaboard of the United States. The U.S. will also move. Okay, it's 1 infantry armored unit and 2 mechanized infantry into or onto the eastern seaboard of the United States. All right, and what else? What am I forgetting anything here? Oh, yes, we have 1 mechanized infantry. Okay, this mechanized infantry at a movement of 3 will make it all the way onto Alaska. All right, so remember that we have railways, and the railways can have a movement of up to 3 spaces, and that mechanized infantry does make it all the way to Alaska. All right, so let's go ahead with the final placements of units. I believe I made all the non-combat movements for the USA. We're going to place this minor industrial complex in Alaska, which is an interesting placement. I did not foresee that. Definitely it is something different. You don't normally see an industrial complex in Alaska, but we shall see what G.I. Joe plans to do with that. All right, so the remainder of the U.S. purchases, which are 2 submarines, 1 destroyer, and 1 aircraft carrier, are going to be placed in Sea Zone 101. The 2 fighters will land on the carrier, newly purchased carrier, along with 1 destroyer, 1 submarine, and because there's a limit of placements, it's a minor industrial complex that the U.S. has on the eastern seaboard. Because the U.S. is still out of war, that complex could only produce 3 units at a time. The other complex in central USA can produce 3, and we will utilize that complex to produce or place the last remainder of the purchases, which was another submarine. Okay, doesn't make a difference, just a technicality that has to be mentioned. And in any case, all the naval units that were purchased were placed at Sea Zone 101. All right, so the U.S. will collect. It spent all 52 of its IPCs, and will of course collect 52 IPCs. The U.S. is still at war. Okay, so just to paraphrase, the U.S. has a considerable naval presence in Sea Zone 26, which is off the coast of Hawaii. You have an aircraft carrier in Sea Zone 30. And of course, then you have a smaller task force up in Alaska with transport and destroyer, and a submarine in Sea Zone 7 as well. All right, up on the eastern seaboard of the United States, you have another U.S. fleet consisting of a cruiser carrier with its complements of fighter aircraft, a destroyer, and 2 submarines. All right, so that's it for the USA's turn. It's definitely interesting, and I'm curious to find out what G.I. Joe will do. Is he going to focus more on the Pacific side, theater of the war, or will he eventually focus more on the Atlantic side, the European side? It seems to me that he's actually maybe potentially looking at fighting both wars simultaneously, both the Pacific and Atlantic. All right, guys, that's it for now. It is officially now the UK's turn, that is under the command of Field Marshal Sire Blood. All right, so guys, look forward to the next episode. And as I always like to say, don't forget to bunker down and play.